the beginning that you have made.
David Hammerstein-Mintz is a member of the European Parliament, deeply involved in large-scale politics, but being a member of the Green Party, he feels himself above the old divisions of left and right.
After having spent a number of years here in the European Parliament, we play a unique role in fighting climate change, defending diversity, and defending human rights, irrespective of what the political tendency is, whether it be in China, Guantanamo, or whether it be in Cuba.
There is sometimes a conception that green politics, even though it's not entirely left, is left-leaning.
I usually don't even use the terms left or right in my daily politics at all. On some issues, we have more agreement, let's say, with the Conservatives, let's say on subsidies, especially the subsidies when they're harmful for the environment, or let's say subsidies for intensive agriculture, whereas we split with the left. On other issues, sometimes we're more in agreement on human rights with the left. But it really depends on what issues. But if you follow green politics, you know that our points of view are very distinct and unique.
The left wing of politics was, or had at least, a significant Jewish segment in it historically. The Green parties are less Jewishly inclined, I think. Do you agree?
Well, one of our co-presidents, of course, is of Jewish background, Daniel Cohn-Bendit. He's one of the co-presidents of the Green Group in the European Parliament. No, I would say, on the contrary, there's quite a significant Jewish presence. I don't know how you would express that. But I'd say, for example, one of the philosophers most respected by the Green movement is Hannah Arendt. And the other one, who is probably the father of the principle, of the precautionary principle of the whole European Union, especially for the Greens, the principle of defending life, Hans Jonas. Another one who had for years had his discussions in Jerusalem, and another Jewish intellectual. The European movement, and I feel extremely pro-European, which goes above nations, above ethnic group, I think is a very positive thing for the Jews. And if this European movement had existed 70, 80 years ago, I'm sure Jewish history would have been very different.
Well, it could be argued that what happened 70, 80 years ago was another attempt, a dictatorial attempt at going beyond nations.
Well, the European Union is a reaction of what happened during the Second World War. It's a reaction of overcoming the differences, let's say, between Germany and France. Now we've overcome, in the last few years, probably the differences, more or less, of the Oder River. So we've gone probably beyond these two big barriers between Western and Eastern Europe, between Germany and France, and I would hope as well overcoming between, let's say, Muslim Europe and Western Europe, to overcome the Bosphorus. And this would probably be the next dream of the next generation.
Do you think there's really a chance for that Turkey will ever be integrated into the European Union?
I support it. I support it.
I understand that you support it.
I support it in the sense, and I think it's another dream. If you had said 50 years ago, 40 years ago, that we were going to get beyond the Oder River between Germany and Poland and Eastern Europe, you also would have said, this is just a dream, this will never happen. And if you had asked the generation before if the differences between Germany and France would ever be overcome, people would also say. So I think that the next dream of this generation is overcoming the differences between a Muslim democratic country like Turkey and allowing this country to become a part of Europe. And I think this would be tremendously positive for Europe, for Middle East politics, and for the world as a whole.
There's a sense in Israel a lot of times that Europe is biased in its approach to Israel, to Jews in general and to Israel in particular. That whenever there's a case of Israel against Palestinians, Syrians, whoever is there, that Europe will tend to take the other side. Is that realistic, or is that just regular paranoia?
I hate to say that it's mainly regular paranoia. I would say that most Europeans have a fairly balanced view to the Middle East. And I hate it when people think the best friend of Israel is the person who defends the most extreme case within Israeli politics. And I think this is a tragic mistake, a tragic mistake. What is good for Israel, for me, is to move towards peace, to move towards coexistence, is to move towards the end of the occupation of all these Palestinian lands. And this isn't being anti-Israel at all. I think this is looking, how are we going to secure the best future for Israel, the most secure future, and this has to do with politics. So it's very easy to be populist and Israel right or wrong while defending often minority positions within Israel. And I think that's not the best attitude for someone who really wants to be a friend of the future of Israel.